A Moonlit Stroll Through Ancient Samarkand. Chapter 1. Arrival in Samarkand. The moon hangs like a silver coin in the velvet sky above you, casting its gentle light across the ancient city of Samarkand. You step through the weathered stone archway that marks the entrance to this jewel of the Silk Road, feeling the cool evening breeze brush against your face like a whispered greeting from centuries past. The air carries the faint scent of cardamom and cinnamon, mingling with the earthy smell of sun-warmed clay and limestone that has absorbed the desert heat throughout the long day. Your footsteps echo softly against the cobblestones beneath you, each stone worn smooth by countless travelers who have walked the same path over hundreds of years. The sound is rhythmic and soothing, like a gentle heartbeat that matches the pace of your slow, unhurried walk. Above you, the famous blue domes of Samarkand rise like sleeping giants against the star-studded sky, their surfaces catching the moonlight and reflecting it back in shades of deep sapphire and midnight blue. You pause for a moment to take in the sight before you. The Registan Square spreads out like an open book in stone and tile, its three magnificent madrasas standing sentinel in the silver light. The intricate geometric patterns that cover their facades seem to dance and shimmer in the gentle illumination, each tile carefully placed by master craftsmen whose names have been lost to time, but whose artistry lives on in every curve and angle. The air is still and peaceful, broken only by the distant sound of water trickling from an unseen fountain somewhere in the depths of the city. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with the exotic perfume that seems to emanate from the very stones around you. There is jasmine here, and sandalwood, the lingering traces of incense from evening prayers, and something else, something indefinable, that speaks of ancient wisdom and timeless beauty. As you begin to walk forward, your eyes are drawn to the magnificent portal of the Ulugh Beg Madrasa directly ahead. Even in the soft moonlight, you can make out the intricate calligraphy that flows across its surface, like frozen music, praising the glory of knowledge and the beauty of learning. The Arabic script seems to pulse with life in the shifting shadows, each letter a work of art that tells stories of scholars and students who once filled these halls with their voices and dreams. Your fingers trail along the cool stone wall as you pass, feeling the subtle texture of the surface where countless hands have touched before yours. The stone is smooth in some places, worn by the passage of time and the gentle caress of wind and sand, while in others it retains the sharp edges that speak of the skill of the stonemasons who shaped it centuries ago. Each imperfection tells a story, each worn spot a testament to the enduring nature of human touch and presence. The shadows cast by the towering minarets stretch across your path like gentle fingers, creating a pattern of light and dark that seems to guide your steps. You move through these pools of shadow and moonlight with the easy grace of someone who has all the time in the world, letting your body find its own rhythm as you explore this magnificent space. To your left, a series of smaller arches leads to what was once a student's cell, now empty, but still resonating with the echoes of prayers and study that once filled the air. You can almost hear the whispered recitations of ancient texts, the scratch of reed pens on parchment, the quiet discussions between teacher and pupil that shaped the minds of generations. The very walls seem to hold these memories, releasing them slowly into the night air like incense. Above you, the stars swirl slowly across the sky, their light joining with that of the moon to illuminate the intricate star and polygon patterns that decorate every surface. These geometric designs, based on mathematical principles that were cutting-edge centuries ago, create an hypnotic effect that draws your eye ever upward, toward the infinite expanse of the heavens that have watched over this city since its founding. You continue your leisurely walk, moving deeper into the heart of the Registan. The sound of your footsteps changes as you cross from cobblestone to the smoother marble that paves the central courtyard. Here, the acoustics are different, your movements creating a softer, more muffled sound that seems to be absorbed by the vast space around you. The silence is profound and comforting, broken only by the gentle whisper of wind through the arches and the distant call of a night bird settling into its roost. The Share-Door Madrasa rises before you now, its twin tigers frozen in eternal pursuit of deer across its facade. Even these fierce predators seem gentle in the moonlight, their mosaic forms more decorative than threatening, part of the overall harmony that pervades this sacred space. The tiles that form their bodies catch and release the light in subtle ways, creating the illusion of movement where there is only stillness. As you approach the center of the square, you notice how the three buildings seem to embrace the space they define, creating a sense of protection and welcome that envelops you like a warm cloak. This is not just architecture, it is a philosophy made manifest in stone and tile, a vision of beauty and learning that has survived wars and weather, conquest and time itself. The proportions are perfect, each element balanced against the others, to create a harmony that speaks directly to something deep within your soul. You settle onto the edge of a low platform that runs along the base of the Tilokeri Madrasa, letting yourself rest while you absorb the full magnificence of the scene before you. The stone beneath you is cool against your legs, still holding a whisper of the day's warmth, but gradually releasing it to the night air. From this vantage point, you can see how the moonlight plays across the entire square, highlighting certain details, while allowing others to recede into mysterious shadow. The gold leaf that decorates portions of the Tilokeri's dome glints softly above you, catching the light like scattered stars, brought down to earth. This madrasa, the gold-covered one, lives up to its name, even in the subdued illumination of the moon, its precious metal work creating points of brilliance that seem to pulse with their own inner light. You can imagine how spectacular it must look in the full light of day, but there is something especially magical about seeing it like this, softened and made mysterious by the night. Your breathing has slowed to match the peaceful rhythm of the evening, each inhalation bringing with it the complex bouquet of scents that define this place. There is rose water here, left over from the evening ablutions, and the faint smell of the oil that feeds the few lamps still burning in distant windows. Underneath it all is the persistent aroma of the desert itself, dry, clean, and somehow timeless, speaking of vast spaces and ancient patience. The wind picks up slightly, carrying with it the sound of fabric rustling somewhere in the distance, perhaps prayer flags, or banners stirring in the breeze, or simply the clothes of some other late-night wanderer, like yourself exploring the quiet streets of the city. The sound is comforting, rather than alarming, a reminder that life continues its gentle cycle even in these moments of perfect stillness. You close your eyes for a moment and let the sensations wash over you completely. The cool air against your skin, the solid support of the stone beneath you, the faint sounds of the city settling into sleep. the rich perfume of spices and flowers that seems to be woven into the very fabric of this place. All of it combines to create a sense of being exactly where you belong, in exactly the right moment. When you open your eyes again, the moon has moved slightly in its journey across the sky, and the pattern of shadows has shifted accordingly. New details emerge from the darkness, while others fade away, as if the buildings themselves are slowly revealing their secrets one by one. You realize that you could sit here for hours and continue to discover new aspects of the scene before you, new subtleties in the play of light and shadow, new harmonies in the relationships between the different architectural elements. But the night is still young, and Samarkand has many more wonders to reveal. You rise slowly from your resting place, feeling refreshed and ready to continue your exploration. The movement sends a small shower of desert sand cascading from your clothes, each grain catching the moonlight briefly before disappearing into the shadows. Even this tiny detail seems significant somehow, a reminder of the way this ancient place has a habit of becoming part of you, of leaving its mark on everyone who passes through. As you prepare to leave the Registan behind and venture deeper into the city, you take one last long look at the magnificent ensemble before you. The three madrasas stand like guardians of wisdom and beauty, their blue domes and minarets reaching toward the heavens in an eternal gesture of aspiration and faith. In the moonlight, they seem less like buildings than like music made visible, a symphony of proportion and decoration that speaks to the highest aspirations of human creativity. You turn away reluctantly, your footsteps echoing once more against the marble as you cross the square toward one of the many arched passages that lead into the labyrinthine streets of old Samarkand. The passage ahead is dark and inviting, promising new discoveries and fresh perspectives on this magical city that has captured the hearts of travelers for over 1,000 years. The last thing you see as you pass under the arch is the reflection of moonlight in a small pool of water that has collected in a depression in the marble. The image of the dome above wavers slightly in the gentle breeze that stirs the water surface, creating the illusion that the solid stone is actually fluid, changeable, alive with possibilities. It seems fitting somehow, a reminder that even the most permanent-seeming aspects of our world are subject to the gentle influences of time and change, and that beauty lies as much in the process of transformation as in any fixed form. Chapter 2. The Market at Dusk. Your footsteps carry you through the arched passageway and into the heart of Samarkand's ancient bazaar, where the magic of the evening market unfolds before you like pages from an illuminated manuscript. The narrow alleyways that spread out in all directions are lit by the warm, golden glow of countless lanterns, each one casting dancing shadows that seem to breathe life into the weathered walls and time-worn archways surrounding you. The sense that greets you as you enter this enchanted space is intoxicating. Layers upon layers of exotic spices, precious oils, and rare incenses that have been trading hands along these same routes since the days when Samarkand was the beating heart of the Silk Road. You breathe deeply, allowing the complex aromatic symphony to fill your senses. There is saffron here, precious and golden, its hay-like sweetness mingling with the warm, earthy depth of turmeric and the sharp, clean bite of cardamom pods still nestled in their pale green shells. You move forward slowly, your pace naturally adjusting to the unhurried rhythm of the evening market. Unlike the bustling energy of daytime commerce, the bazaar at this hour has taken on a dreamlike quality, where time seems to move like honey, and every moment stretches languidly into the next. The merchants who remain are the keepers of tradition, the guardians of ancient arts and crafts, who understand that some transactions require patience, contemplation, and the kind of quiet conversation that can only flourish in the gentle embrace of twilight. To your right, an elderly silk merchant sits cross-legged behind an array of fabrics that catch the lantern light like captured rainbows. The silk scarves and lengths of cloth are arranged with the care of a painter setting out pigments on a palette, deep burgundies and rich crimsons that speak of roses and pomegranates, brilliant blues that echo the famous domes you've just left behind, and golds so luminous they seem to generate their own light. Your fingers are drawn to touch the smooth, cool surface of a midnight blue scarf, and the merchant nods approvingly, his eyes twinkling with the knowledge that comes from a lifetime of watching people fall in love with his wares. The silk feels like liquid starlight between your fingers, so fine and delicate that you can barely sense its weight, yet somehow substantial enough to hold the depths of color that swirl within its weave. The merchant explains in a voice barely above a whisper that this particular piece was woven by his grandmother's sister, using techniques passed down through 7 generations of his family. The pattern that emerges as you hold it up to the light is subtle but intricate, intertwining vines and stylized flowers that seem to dance across the surface, revealing new details with every shift of perspective. You continue your leisurely exploration, moving deeper into the maze of covered passages that forms the heart of the bazaar. Above you, the ceiling is a patchwork of ancient stone and weathered wood, supported by pillars whose capitals are carved with the flowing script of Arabic calligraphy and the geometric patterns that are the hallmark of Islamic art. The spaces between the beams allow glimpses of the star-filled sky above, creating natural skylights that add the silver illumination of moonlight to the warm gold of the lanterns. In an alcove to your left, a spice merchant has arranged his wares in tall, conical mounds that rise like colorful mountains from large copper basins. Each spice tells its own story through color and fragrance: the deep red of sumac berries, the warm brown of cinnamon bark, the pale yellow of ground coriander, and the dark, mysterious beauty of black peppercorns. The merchant, a man whose face bears the weathered dignity of decades spent in this profession, offers you a small dish of rose petals, preserved in sugar, their perfume so intense and pure that it seems to transport you instantly to a garden in full bloom under the desert sun. The sweetness of the rose petals dissolves slowly on your tongue, releasing layer after layer of floral complexity, hints of vanilla and honey, touches of spice and earth, all woven together in perfect harmony. As you savor this simple pleasure, you become aware of the subtle soundtrack that underlies all activity in the bazaar, the soft conversations of merchants and customers, the gentle chiming of brass and copper vessels touched by the breeze, the whispered prayers that drift from a small mosque somewhere deeper in the complex. Your path takes you past a carpet weaver's stall, where ancient looms stand like musical instruments waiting to be played. The artisan, a woman whose skilled fingers move with the precision of a master musician, works by the light of an oil lamp that casts warm shadows across the intricate pattern emerging from her loom. The carpet taking shape under her hands is a masterpiece of color and design, deep blues and vibrant reds intertwining with threads of gold and silver to create patterns that seem to shift and flow like living things. She looks up from her work as you pass, offering a smile that speaks of the deep satisfaction that comes from practicing an art that connects her to countless generations of craftspeople. Without breaking the rhythm of her weaving, she explains that the pattern she's creating is called the Garden of Paradise, a design that represents the Islamic vision of heaven as a place of eternal beauty, flowing water, and perfect harmony. Each knot she ties, she tells you, is a prayer, each thread a connection to the divine creative force that flows through all things. The carpet's emerging beauty is hypnotic to watch, the way the individual threads come together to form larger patterns, the way colors that might seem harsh or discordant on their own combine to create something of transcendent loveliness. You find yourself drawn into the meditative rhythm of her work, the gentle pull and release of the threads, the soft clicking of her tools, the way her hands seem to move with a life of their own, guided by knowledge that has become instinct through years of dedicated practice. Moving on, you discover a small tea house tucked into a corner where three passages meet. The proprietor, a man whose hospitality radiates from every gesture, invites you to sit on the cushions that surround a low table inlaid with mother-of-pearl and amber. The tea he serves comes in a small glass cup that warms your hands as you hold it, the liquid within glowing like liquid gold in the lamplight. The flavor is complex and soothing, green tea scented with mint and jasmine, sweetened with honey and touched with just the faintest hint of rose water. As you sip the tea, you watch the gentle dance of steam rising from your cup, the way it curls and spirals upward before dissipating into the cool evening air. The proprietor speaks softly about the tea, explaining that it comes from plants grown high in the mountains that ring the ancient city, where the thin air and intense sunlight create leaves of exceptional fragrance and potency. The honey, he tells you, is gathered from hives kept by his cousin, who follows traditional methods passed down through his family for generations. The tea house becomes a perfect vantage point from which to observe the quiet drama of the evening market. Customers drift by like characters in a dream, each one adding their own note to the gentle symphony of commerce and conversation that fills the space. There's a young woman examining brass lamps with the careful attention of someone choosing a treasure, an elderly man deep in discussion with a bookseller about the merits of various manuscripts, a pair of children who chase each other between the stalls in a game that seems to involve trying to catch the dancing shadows cast by the swaying lanterns. The bookseller's stall draws your attention as you finish your tea, the ancient volumes and scrolls arranged with reverent care on tables covered with rich, dark cloth. Many of the books are written in scripts you cannot read, flowing Arabic, elegant Persian, mysterious Chinese characters, but their beauty transcends language. The leather bindings are worn smooth by countless hands, the pages yellow with age, but still supple, the illuminated letters and decorative borders glowing with colors that seem to capture light and hold it prisoner. The bookseller, noticing your interest, shows you a volume of Sufi poetry, its pages filled with verses about divine love and the search for transcendence. Even without understanding the words, you can sense the power and beauty of the language, the way the script itself becomes a form of visual music, flowing across the page in patterns that please the eye even as they speak to the soul. He translates a few lines for you, his voice taking on the rhythmic cadence of the original verse. In the garden of the heart, plant only roses of love. Water them with tears of longing, and watch how they bloom in the light of truth. The poetry seems to capture something essential about this place, about the way beauty and spirituality intertwine in the Islamic tradition, to create spaces like this bazaar where commerce becomes communion, where the simple act of buying and selling is elevated into something approaching art. Every transaction you witness is conducted with a grace and courtesy that transforms the mundane into the magical, where bargaining becomes a dance, and exchange becomes an expression of mutual respect and understanding. As you prepare to leave the tea house and continue your exploration, the proprietor presents you with a small paper packet tied with string. Inside, he explains, is a blend of the tea you've been drinking, a gift to take with you, so that you can recreate this moment of peace whenever you need it. The gesture is offered with such simple generosity that it brings tears to your eyes, a reminder of the way true hospitality can transform strangers into friends and moments into memories. The packet feels light in your hand, but you know it contains more than just dried leaves and flowers. It holds the essence of this place, the spirit of generosity and beauty that seems to infuse every corner of the bazaar. As you tuck it carefully into your pocket, you feel the weight of all the experiences you've gathered on your journey through the market, the silk merchant's smile, the spice seller's rose petals, the carpet weaver's patient artistry, the bookseller's poetry, and now this tea master's kindness. The lanterns seem to burn a little brighter as you make your way toward the passage that will lead you to your next destination. Behind you, the gentle murmur of conversation continues, punctuated by the soft chiming of metal and the whisper of fabric in the breeze. The bazaar will continue its ancient rhythms long after you've gone, preserving traditions that have survived centuries of change and upheaval, keeping alive the arts and crafts that connect the present to the past in an unbroken chain of human creativity and aspiration. The moon, visible through the gaps in the ceiling above, has moved further along its nightly journey, and you realize that hours have passed without your awareness, time flowing like the silk scarves that flutter in the gentle breeze. But this is the magic of places like Samarkand's ancient market. They exist outside of ordinary time, creating pockets of eternity where the soul can rest and the spirit can drink deep from wells of beauty that have been refreshing travelers for over 1,000 years. Chapter 3. The Madrasa Courtyard. The narrow passage from the bazaar opens into the serene embrace of a madrasa courtyard, and you step across the threshold into a space that seems designed specifically for contemplation and inner peace. The sudden transition from the warm chaos of the market to this sanctuary of learning and reflection is like moving from one world into another, each step carrying you deeper into the heart of Samarkand's spiritual essence. Before you stretches a rectangular courtyard, paved with stones so perfectly fitted that the joints between them are barely visible, creating a surface that seems to flow like water frozen in time. The moonlight bathes the entire space in silver luminescence, transforming every surface into a study in light and shadow, texture and form. At the center of this peaceful haven, a fountain whispers its eternal song, the sound of water meeting water, creating a rhythm that seems to slow your heartbeat and deepen your breathing without conscious effort on your part. You move toward the fountain with the unhurried pace that this sacred space seems to inspire, your footsteps muffled by the perfect acoustics of the courtyard, which seem designed to contain sound rather than amplify it. The fountain itself is a masterpiece of geometric precision and organic flow. Its octagonal basin carved from a single piece of cream-colored marble that seems to glow with its own internal light. The water emerges from a central spout crowned with a brass finial worked in the shape of a stylized lotus blossom, each petal catching and releasing the moonlight in subtle variations of brightness. As you approach, you can see that the rim of the fountain is inscribed with verses from the Quran praising the beauty of creation and the importance of knowledge. The Arabic script flows around the circumference of the basin, a river of meaning, each letter perfectly proportioned and positioned to create not just text, but visual art that speaks to the eye before the mind can decipher its meaning. The water level is perfectly calibrated so that it rises almost to the rim without ever overflowing, creating a mirror-like surface that reflects the star-studded sky above and doubles the visual poetry of the scene. You settle onto the raised edge of the fountain, feeling the cool smoothness of the marble against your legs and the gentle mist that occasionally drifts your way when the breeze shifts the water spray. From this vantage point, you can take in the full majesty of the courtyard's architecture, the way each element has been designed to work in harmony with all the others to create a space that nurtures both learning and spiritual reflection. The four walls that define the courtyard rise around you in perfect symmetry, each one pierced by a series of arched alcoves that once served as study cells for students of theology, mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy. The arches themselves are works of art, their curves calculated according to mathematical principles that create both structural strength and visual beauty. Each arch is framed by bands of geometric tilework in deep blues and brilliant whites, patterns that seem to pulse with life in the shifting moonlight, creating optical illusions that draw the eye ever deeper into their mathematical mysteries. Above the arches, the walls rise to support a series of small domes, each one crowned with a crescent that catches the starlight and holds it like a chalice. The domes themselves are covered in tiles that range from the deepest midnight blue to the pale silver of dawn, creating a gradient that seems to merge the earthbound architecture with the infinite sky above. In the moonlight, this transition is even more pronounced, as if the building itself is participating in the nightly conversation between earth and heaven. Behind you, the main teaching hall opens onto the courtyard through a magnificent Iwan, a vaulted hall whose entrance arch soars upward in a perfect demonstration of Islamic architectural mastery. The interior of the arch is decorated with stalactite-like muqarnas that create patterns of light and shadow so complex and beautiful that they seem to shift and change as you watch, defying the eye's attempt to fix them in any single configuration. The overall effect is hypnotic and deeply calming, as if the architecture itself is designed to induce the kind of meditative state that facilitates learning and contemplation. The sound of the fountain provides a constant, gentle backdrop to your observations, its rhythm so perfectly natural that it seems less like an artificial creation than like a natural spring that has been lovingly shaped and guided by human hands. The water itself is crystal clear, so pure that you can see every detail of the carved patterns that decorate the basin's interior, stylized representations of vines and flowers that create the illusion that the fountain is growing up from the earth like a living thing. Small fish move lazily through the water, their golden scales catching the moonlight as they navigate between the shadows cast by the fountain's decorative elements. Their presence adds another layer of life and movement to the scene, a reminder that even in this most formal and structured of environments, nature finds ways to assert its presence and contribute to the overall harmony of the space. As your eyes adjust to the subtle variations in the moonlight, you begin to notice details that were invisible at first glance. The walls of the alcoves are decorated with fine plasterwork that creates patterns so delicate they seem like lacework carved in stone. Each pattern is different, yet all are united by an underlying mathematical logic that creates unity within diversity, a visual representation of the Islamic concept of tawhid, the underlying unity that connects all aspects of creation. In one of the alcoves, you notice someone has left a small oil lamp burning. Its warm light creates a pool of golden illumination that contrasts beautifully with the cool silver of the moonlight. And you can see that the alcove contains a simple wooden desk and a few manuscripts. This is clearly still a place of study and contemplation, where modern scholars come to continue the work begun by their predecessors centuries ago. The sight fills you with a deep sense of continuity and connection, the understanding that knowledge is not just information, but a living tradition that flows from teacher to student across the generations. The breeze picks up slightly, stirring the leaves of a pomegranate tree that grows in one corner of the courtyard. The tree is ancient, its trunk gnarled and twisted with age, but still bearing fruit whose deep red color seems almost supernatural in the moonlight. A few of the pomegranates have fallen to the ground, where they rest like scattered jewels among the perfectly fitted stones of the courtyard floor. The sight reminds you of the Persian poetry that compares the seeds of the pomegranate to rubies, each one containing the promise of new life and growth. You close your eyes and let the full sensory experience of the courtyard wash over you. There is the sound of the fountain, constant and soothing. There is the faint fragrance of jasmine from somewhere beyond the walls, mixing with the clean scent of water and the subtle perfume of the herbs that grow in small gardens tucked into corners of the space. There is the feeling of cool air against your skin, carrying with it the slight humidity that rises from the fountain and the warmth that still radiates from the stones, which have been absorbing sunlight all day, and now release it slowly into the night. When you open your eyes again, you notice that the shadows have shifted subtly, revealing new aspects of the courtyard's decoration. What appeared to be simple geometric patterns now resolve into incredibly complex mathematical relationships, each element positioned with precision that speaks to both artistic genius and deep understanding of the underlying principles that govern proportion and harmony. You begin to understand why Islamic culture has always placed such emphasis on mathematics and geometry. They are not just tools for building and decoration, but languages for expressing the deepest truths about the nature of reality itself. A soft breeze stirs the surface of the fountain, sending tiny ripples across the water that fragment and multiply the reflection of the moon and stars. For a moment, it's as if the sky has shattered into 1,000 pieces, each one containing its own complete image of the celestial dance taking place overhead. Then the water settles, and the reflections coalesce once again into perfect mirrors of the heavens, a reminder of the way that apparent chaos can give way to deeper patterns of order and meaning. The silence in the courtyard is not the empty silence of abandonment, but the full silence of a space that has been saturated with centuries of prayer, study, and contemplation. It's the kind of silence that holds wisdom rather than emptiness, that invites reflection rather than restlessness. You find your breathing naturally slowing to match this deeper rhythm, your thoughts settling like sediment in still water, leaving behind a clarity and peace that feels like coming home to yourself. Time seems to have no meaning in this space, where the architecture itself seems designed to lift consciousness above the mundane concerns of daily life and connect it to the eternal verities that underlie all temporary appearances. The moonlight continues its slow dance across the surfaces around you, revealing and concealing, highlighting and shadowing, creating a constantly changing display that nonetheless feels utterly stable and permanent. As you sit in this profound peace, you become aware of the way the courtyard connects you not just to this particular place and time, but to all the students and teachers who have sat where you're sitting, looked at what you're looking at, breathed the same air heavy with the fragrance of learning and devotion. Their presence seems to hover around you like a blessing, a reminder that the quest for knowledge and wisdom is one of the things that most deeply unites human beings across all boundaries of time and culture. The fountain continues its gentle song, the sound weaving itself into the fabric of your consciousness until it becomes indistinguishable from the rhythm of your own pulse, the whisper of your own breathing, the quiet movements of your own thoughts, settling into stillness. You realize that this is what these spaces were designed for, not just to house learning, but to create the inner conditions that make true learning possible, the peace and clarity that allow the mind to perceive truth and the heart to recognize beauty. Chapter 4. Gardens of Shaizinda. Your contemplative journey carries you away from the peaceful courtyard and toward one of Samarkand's most sacred spaces, the necropolis of Shaizinda, where ancient tombs rest among gardens that seem to exist at the intersection of earth and paradise. The path that leads you there is itself a meditation, winding gently upward along a hillside where olive trees and ancient mulberries cast intricate patterns of shadow and moonlight across your way. As you climb the gradual slope, the fragrance that reaches you grows ever more complex and intoxicating. Rose bushes line portions of the path, their blooms releasing their perfume into the cool night air with such intensity that each breath feels like a blessing. But there are other scents here too. The green sweetness of fig trees heavy with fruit, the sharp freshness of mint growing wild near a small spring, and the deeper, more mysterious aroma of frankincense that drifts from somewhere ahead, where pilgrims have left offerings at the tombs of saints and scholars. The first glimpse of Shaizinda appears before you like a vision from the Arabian Nights, a collection of mausoleums and monuments that climb the hillside in an arrangement so beautiful it seems to have grown naturally from the landscape itself. Each tomb is a masterpiece of architectural artistry, their azure domes and intricate tilework catching the moonlight and reflecting it back in patterns that seem to pulse with their own inner life. You pause at the entrance to the complex, marked by a magnificent portal whose geometric decorations create an optical symphony of intersecting stars and polygons. The craftsmanship is so fine that even in the subdued light of the moon, you can make out individual tiles, no larger than postage stamps, each one precisely cut and positioned to contribute to patterns of breathtaking complexity and beauty. The overall effect is one of infinite detail supporting infinite wholeness, a visual representation of the way the Islamic tradition sees the relationship between the finite and the eternal. The path ahead is paved with stones worn smooth by centuries of pilgrims. Their surface is polished to a lustrous sheen that reflects the starlight like scattered diamonds. As you begin your ascent through the necropolis, you're struck by the profound sense of peace that emanates from this place, not the sadness often associated with cemeteries, but a deep tranquility that speaks of lives well lived and souls at rest. To your right, the tomb of a 14th-century astronomer rises like a small jewel box, its dome covered in tiles that create a pattern representing the constellation under which he was born. The mathematical precision of the decoration reflects his life's work mapping the movements of celestial bodies, and you can see how the pattern changes subtly as the moonlight shifts, creating the illusion that the stars themselves are slowly wheeling across the surface of his final resting place. The garden areas between the tombs have been tended with loving care for generations, and even at this late hour, you can sense the vitality that flows through them. Ancient rose bushes trained into arboreal forms create natural pavilions where visitors can sit and contemplate, their branches heavy with blooms whose fragrance seems designed to induce meditation and prayer. Between the roses, beds of herbs and flowers create a tapestry of scents and color: lavender and rosemary, mint and sage, jasmine and honeysuckle, all growing together in harmonious profusion. A small canal runs through the gardens, its water channeled from springs higher up the hillside through a system of underground channels that represent the cutting edge of medieval hydraulic engineering. The water moves through carved channels that follow the natural contours of the slope, creating a series of small pools and fountains that provide both the sound of moving water and the practical irrigation needed to maintain the garden's lush beauty. You follow the path of the water, letting it guide your steps deeper into the complex. At one point, the channel widens into a larger pool surrounded by cypress trees, whose dark silhouettes stand out dramatically against the star-filled sky. The reflection of the moon wavers gently in the pool's surface, and you can see fish moving lazily in the depths, their presence a reminder of the life that flows through even this most contemplative of spaces. The tomb of a renowned Sufi master draws your attention with its unique octagonal shape and the incredibly fine calligraphy that flows across its walls like frozen music. The Arabic script is worked in gold leaf that still gleams after centuries, each letter formed with such precision and beauty that the text becomes its own form of worship. The verses speak of divine love and the soul's journey toward unity with the beloved, themes that seem particularly appropriate to this setting, where earthly beauty serves as a bridge to transcendent truth. Near the master's tomb, an ancient fig tree spreads its broad canopy, its branches so heavy with fruit that some of the figs have dropped to the ground, where they rest like offerings among the intricate geometric patterns of the pathway. You pick up one of the fallen fruits and taste its honeyed sweetness, the flavor so intense and pure that it seems to contain the essence of all the summers this tree has witnessed, all the pilgrims who have rested in its shade, all the prayers that have been offered beneath its protective branches. The highest point of the complex is crowned by the tomb that gives the necropolis its name, the resting place of Qasim ibn Abbas, the cousin of the Prophet Muhammad, known as the living king because his spiritual presence is said to remain eternally active in this place. The mausoleum rises before you like a crystallized prayer, its dome a perfect hemisphere of midnight blue tiles studded with golden stars, that mirror exactly the constellation overhead at the moment of the saint's death. As you approach this most sacred of the tombs, the garden around it reveals itself to be a masterpiece of landscape design that represents the Islamic vision of paradise made manifest on earth. The four-fold garden layout follows the traditional Chahar bog pattern, with 4 streams of water flowing outward from a central fountain to represent the 4 rivers of paradise described in the Quran. Each quadrant contains different plants and flowers, creating a symphony of color and fragrance that changes subtly with the seasons, but maintains its essential harmony throughout the year. In the northeastern quadrant, ancient pomegranate trees heavy with fruit create a canopy under which smaller shrubs flourish: jasmine and rose, myrtle and orange blossom, each contributing its own note to the complex perfume that fills the air. The pomegranates themselves seem almost supernatural in the moonlight, their deep red skin glowing like rubies, some split open to reveal the jewel-like seeds within that Islamic poetry has always compared to the stars of heaven. The southeastern section is dedicated to herbs and medicinal plants, a reminder that in Islamic tradition, the gardens of paradise are not just places of beauty, but sources of healing and restoration. Here grow the plants that have been used for centuries to treat ailments of both body and spirit: mint for digestion, lavender for calm, rosemary for memory, and dozens of other herbs whose names and properties have been passed down through generations of traditional healers. As you move through this healing garden, the fragrances seem to work their ancient magic, each breath bringing with it a sense of restoration and well-being. The plants release their essential oils more freely in the cool night air, creating combinations of scent that are both complex and perfectly balanced, like a master perfumer's finest creation left to develop naturally under the stars. The northwestern quadrant is planted with fruit trees whose branches interweave to create natural arches and tunnels that filter the moonlight into patterns of incredible delicacy. Fig trees with their broad, hand-shaped leaves alternate with smaller citrus trees whose white blossoms perfume the air with their intense sweetness. Beneath these larger trees, grapevines climb over trellises and arbors, their clusters of fruit hanging like natural ornaments in the silvered light. The final section, in the southwest, is devoted to flowers that bloom primarily at night, creating a garden that reaches its full glory only after the sun has set. Night-blooming jasmine releases its intoxicating perfume in waves that seem timed to your breathing, while 4 o'clocks open their trumpet-shaped blooms to release their own distinctive sweetness. Evening primroses glow like small moons among the darker foliage, and moonflowers unfurl their pure white petals in slow-motion spirals that you can actually watch if you remain still enough. At the very center of this paradise, where the 4 water channels meet, stands a fountain whose design represents the culmination of Islamic hydraulic artistry. The water emerges from a central jet, surrounded by smaller spouts arranged in precise geometric patterns, creating a display that is both visually stunning and acoustically perfect. The sound of the water falling and splashing creates a natural music that seems designed to induce meditation and prayer, its rhythm so perfectly calibrated that it synchronizes with the deeper rhythms of breath and heartbeat. You settle onto a marble bench positioned to take advantage of the fountain's cooling mist and the complex interplay of fragrances from the surrounding gardens. From this vantage point, you can see the entire necropolis spread out below you, each tomb and mausoleum positioned to take advantage of the natural landscape, while contributing to the overall harmony of the composition. The site fills you with a profound sense of the continuity of human aspiration, the way each generation builds upon the work of those who came before to create beauty that transcends individual mortality. The water in the fountain is so clear and pure that it seems to dissolve the boundary between liquid and air, creating the illusion that the jets and sprays are made of crystallized moonlight rather than ordinary water. The basin into which it falls is decorated with verses from Sufi poetry praising the beloved and describing the soul's journey toward union with the divine. The Arabic calligraphy flows around the rim, a river of meaning, each letter perfectly proportioned to create both textual contents and visual art. As you sit in this profound peace, breathing air perfumed with roses and jasmine, listening to the eternal song of falling water, you become aware of the way this garden exists simultaneously in multiple dimensions of time. There is the immediate present, with its specific configuration of light and shadow, sense and sound. There is the deep past, when master gardeners and architects first conceived and created this space according to principles drawn from both aesthetic theory and spiritual practice. And there is the eternal present of paradise itself, which Islamic tradition teaches is not just a future destination, but a reality that can be experienced here and now by those whose hearts are sufficiently pure and open. The moon continues its journey across the sky, and you watch its reflection in the fountain's basin shift and change as the water moves. Sometimes the image is clear and complete, a perfect mirror of the celestial reality overhead. Sometimes it fragments into 1,000 dancing pieces as the water catches the breeze. But always it reforms, always it continues, a reminder of the way divine truth remains constant, even as our perception of it shifts and changes with the movements of our own consciousness. A nightingale begins to sing somewhere in the pomegranate trees, its voice liquid and pure in the crystal air. The song seems to emerge naturally from the garden itself, as if the accumulated beauty and holiness of this place has found its voice and decided to praise its creator. Other birds join in gradually, the soft cooing of doves, the liquid trill of a bulbul, the whispered songs of smaller birds whose names you don't know, but whose presence adds to the sense that this entire space is alive with blessing and grace. The fragrance of night-blooming flowers intensifies as the evening progresses, creating layers of scents that change and develop like a musical composition. The jasmine provides the dominant theme, sweet and intoxicating, while the roses add depth and complexity. Beneath these primary notes, dozens of other flowers and herbs contribute their own subtle harmonies. The green sweetness of mint, the sharp clarity of rosemary, the honeyed depth of orange blossoms, the mysterious spice of frankincense from the offerings left at nearby tombs. As you prepare to continue your journey, you take one final look around this extraordinary space where human artistry and natural beauty have been woven together to create something that transcends both. The gardens of Shaizinda represent more than just landscape design. They are a three-dimensional prayer, a living poem about the relationship between the earthly and the divine, a space where the boundaries between paradise and the present world become permeable and porous. Chapter 5. The Desert Beyond. The path from the gardens leads you gradually away from the heart of ancient Samarkand, winding through quieter neighborhoods where the sounds of the city fade to whispers and the lights grow sparse and distant. Each step carries you closer to the edge of civilization, where the ordered world of human creation gives way to the vast, patient immensity of the Kyzylkum Desert that stretches beyond the city's protective walls like an ocean of sand and starlight. The transition is so gradual that you barely notice it happening. The cobblestones beneath your feet slowly give way to hard-packed earth, then to paths marked only by the passage of caravans and the ancient knowledge of those who have traveled these routes for centuries. The last houses of the city appear behind you like glowing embers in the darkness, their windows casting warm rectangles of golden light that speak of families gathering for late meals, students bent over their books, and craftspeople putting the finishing touches on work that will outlast their own lifetimes. As the final traces of the city disappear behind a low rise in the landscape, you find yourself standing at the threshold of one of the world's great deserts, a wilderness that has challenged and inspired travelers since the earliest days of the Silk Road. The silence here is absolute and profound, broken only by the whisper of wind across sand, and the distant call of a desert owl hunting in the pale light of the moon. Before you stretches a landscape that seems to exist outside of ordinary time and space, where the familiar markers of human scale and reference disappear into immensity. The sand dunes rise and fall like frozen waves, their surfaces carved and sculpted by winds that have been blowing across this expanse since long before humans first looked up at the stars and wondered about their place in the cosmos. Each dune catches and holds the moonlight differently, creating a constantly shifting pattern of silver highlights and purple shadows that transforms the desert into a living work of art. You begin to walk across this sea of sand, your feet finding their own rhythm on the yielding surface that seems to absorb the sound of your footsteps and release them back as whispers. The sensation of walking on sand is unlike anything else, the way it shifts and flows beneath your weight, the slight resistance it offers that makes each step a small meditation on balance and intention, the way it seems to connect you directly to the earth itself without the mediation of stone or wood or any other material. The air here is different too, thinner and cleaner, scoured by the endless movement of wind across open spaces until it seems to contain nothing but starlight and possibility. Each breath feels like a purification, drawing into your lungs air that has traveled across thousands of miles without encountering anything more complex than sand and sky, rock and wind. There is a clarity here that exists nowhere else, a transparency that allows you to see and think and feel with unusual precision and depth. Above you, the sky opens like a vast dome of midnight blue velvet studded with more stars than you have ever seen in your life. Away from the lights and smoke of the city, the full glory of the night sky reveals itself in all its overwhelming majesty. The Milky Way flows across the heavens like a river of light, so bright and distinct that you can make out its spiral structure and see the dark lanes of cosmic dust that weave through its brilliant core. Individual constellations stand out with remarkable clarity, Orion striding across the southern sky, the Great Bear wheeling slowly around the pole star, the Swan flying eternally along the bright stream of the galaxy. But beyond these familiar patterns, thousands of other stars contribute their light to the celestial tapestry, creating a display of such beauty and complexity that it seems to render all human artistic achievement pale by comparison. The moon, now well advanced in its nightly journey, casts everything in silver relief, transforming the desert landscape into something that seems more like a dream than ordinary reality. The sand takes on an opalescent quality, as if it were made not of ground rock and quartz, but of pearl dust and crushed diamonds. Every ripple and ridge created by the wind becomes visible in the dramatic interplay of light and shadow, creating textures and patterns that shift and change even as you watch. You climb to the crest of a particularly large dune, your progress slow but steady as your feet find purchase in the fine sand that slides away beneath each step. The effort required focuses your attention entirely in the present moment, creating a natural meditation that empties your mind of everything except the immediate sensations of breath and movement, balance and progress. By the time you reach the summit, your breathing has settled into a deep, rhythmic pattern that seems synchronized with the vast, slow pulse of the desert itself. From this elevated vantage point, the full scope of the landscape reveals itself in breathtaking panorama. In every direction, sand dunes stretch toward the horizon, their flowing forms creating a geography that seems both alien and familiar, like the surface of another planet, that nonetheless feels like home. The patterns created by wind and gravity, erosion and deposition, create a visual rhythm that is both mathematical and organic, both predictable and completely wild. In the distance, a range of mountains rises like purple shadows against the star-filled sky, their peaks still touched with the memory of snow despite the desert heat that will return with tomorrow's sun. These mountains mark the edge of the world you know, the boundary beyond which lay other deserts, other mountains, other cities where other travelers are perhaps standing at this very moment under the same stars, feeling the same sense of connection to something vast and eternal and infinitely mysterious. You settle onto the soft sand at the dune's crest, letting your body sink slightly into the yielding surface that seems to mold itself around you like a natural chair designed specifically for contemplation and rest. The sand still holds a whisper of the day's warmth, creating a comfortable contrast to the cool night air that flows across your skin like silk. This combination of warmth below and coolness above creates perfect conditions for the kind of deep relaxation that allows consciousness to expand and merge with the infinite spaces around you. The silence here is not empty, but full, pregnant with possibilities, heavy with the accumulated presence of all the travelers who have crossed this desert over the millennia. You can almost sense their ghosts, moving across the sand, the caravans of merchants and pilgrims, scholars and adventurers who followed the Silk Road between the great cities of Central Asia and beyond. Their presence seems to hover in the air like heat shimmer, visible not to the eyes, but to some deeper faculty of perception that responds to the layered history embedded in the landscape itself. A shooting star blazes across the sky, its brief trail of light connecting earth to heaven for one brilliant moment before fading back into the eternal darkness. The sight fills you with a sense of your own place in the cosmic dance, infinitely small in terms of physical scale, but somehow connected to everything through the simple fact of consciousness, the ability to witness and appreciate and be moved by beauty wherever it appears. The wind picks up slightly, stirring the sand around you and creating subtle sounds that seem to carry messages from vast distances. Sometimes it sounds like voices, whispering in languages you cannot understand. Sometimes like music played on instruments made of air and starlight. Sometimes like the breathing of some enormous presence that encompasses the entire desert and everything within it. You realize that this is what the ancient mystics meant when they spoke of the desert as a place of revelation, not because it contains any particular secrets, but because its emptiness allows you to hear truths that are normally drowned out by the noise and complexity of ordinary life. Your breathing gradually slows and deepens until it matches the vast, patient rhythm of the landscape around you. Time seems to stretch and flow like honey, each moment expanding to contain entire lifetimes of sensation and reflection. You become aware of the earth turning slowly beneath you, carrying you through space at speeds that dwarf any earthly journey, part of a cosmic dance that has been going on for billions of years, and will continue long after your individual consciousness has merged back into the infinite source from which it emerged. The temperature drops as the night progresses, and you pull your cloak more tightly around your shoulders, grateful for its warmth and the sense of protection it provides. But even as your body responds to the physical environment, your consciousness seems to expand beyond the boundaries of flesh and bone, merging gradually with the vast spaces that surround you until the distinction between self and cosmos begins to blur and fade. The stars will slowly overhead, marking the passage of hours with their ancient, reliable precision. You watch Orion sink toward the western horizon, while other constellations rise in the east, the eternal dance of the heavens, playing out above you exactly as it has for countless generations of desert travelers. This continuity across time creates a profound sense of connection to all human experience, the understanding that you are part of a story that began with the first human being who looked up at the night sky and felt wonder stirring in their heart. As the moon begins its descent toward the western horizon, you know that your journey through this magical night is drawing toward its close. But rather than sadness, you feel a deep satisfaction, the knowledge that you have been privileged to experience something that will remain with you always, the memory of perfect silence under infinite stars, the sensation of being held by the patient embrace of the desert, the understanding that beauty and peace are always available to those who know how to seek them out. The first hint of dawn appears as a subtle lightening of the eastern sky, not yet true sunrise, but the promise of day to come. The stars begin to fade gradually, giving way to the approaching sun that will soon transform this cool, mysterious landscape back into the blazing furnace of daylight. But for now, in these last precious moments of night, you rest in perfect contentment, your body cradled by the sand, your spirit expanded to encompass the entire desert, your consciousness merged with the eternal peace that flows through all things when the noise of the world finally fades to silence. You close your eyes and let the vast stillness of the desert carry you deeper into rest, knowing that somewhere in the distance, the ancient city of Samarkand continues its own quiet dreams, its blue domes and minarets standing guard over the accumulated wisdom and beauty of centuries. The desert wind whispers its eternal lullaby, the stars continue their silent dance, and you sink gratefully into the deep, restorative sleep that comes only to those who have found their way to the perfect intersection of earth and sky, time and eternity, the finite self and the infinite mystery that holds it all in loving embrace.